Okay, everybody, so today this is the amendment to the tutorial that we did today in class, but this is tutorials about HDRI lighting, using it HDR to project lighting into a scene, also compositing with a photographic scene, and well, let's do it. This is what we're making today, and let's talk about it a bit. First of all, what I want to talk about was this website, which is really great. This is openfootage.net, and here you can find all kinds of free, copyright-free, downloadable HDRI scenes. So these are great for this project, what we're going to be working with. So if you want to go to this site, check it out, download a HDRI scene, download the uncompressed high-resolution file. This one right here, uncompressed. 10,000 by 4,000 pixels. It would be great for the background. Download that, and you can just look through these scenes. There's all kinds of different ones that you can experiment with, and download that. The other thing too is if you're going to use footage from this site, which is free to use, I suggest also making a small donation, even if it's $1. It helps out our artist who's been posting these footage for other people to use, which is a really great service. So let's get it back into cinema. So what I did was I downloaded this scene, and let's just go to a new file here. So what we want to do is, first of all, what we're going to do is create a sky object. So if we go up here to our background objects and floors, just grab a sky, okay? And the next thing we want to do is create and the sky is just a giant sphere that we're kind of inside of, essentially, and we're going to place that image onto the sphere. So let's load a new material. With the material, what we want is to turn off the color, turn off the specular, turn on the luminance. And on the luminance channel, we're going to load in that HDRI image. So go to load image, and this is what we want right here. Now this image is basically is it going to show it to me? Here it comes. It's a 360-degree view panorama of a specific location, and it's struggling because it's huge. So let's just do this. Let's take a look. Let's open it here. No, and then let's just here we go. You can see it in preview. So we take a look at this thing. It is a gray screen. I'm going to pause for a second here. Okay, I got it up. So this is the file. You can see that it's a 360-degree view. So if you were to, grab the left side and connect it to the right side and the top to the bottom, it would wrap around you and create this spherical plane of view. So this is what we need to use for our settings. So let's go back to cinema here. So what we do is in luminance channel, we grab that file, we drop it in there, and then take this and pop it on our sky. So when we do that now, what you can see is you can rotate around this scene. So out in the ocean here, we can see nice view, this sort of building that's behind us if you rotate around. So you can get any sort of view that you want in the scene. What I want to do is I want to have a scene kind of on this boatyard, this marina part here, on this little boardwalk going out into space. Nice place to put an object right about there. So once you get your scene oriented, the next thing you want to do is to we want to lock this scene. So what we want to do here is bring in a camera, and with the camera, what you can do is if you're looking through the camera, you can also kind of zoom in and out of the scene, right? So you can zoom in, zoom out, and change the focal length. I'm going to zoom out a little bit farther. Let's take a look at that. That looks okay. I'm going to rotate a little bit here and maybe zoom in just a little bit more. That looks good. Okay, so this is the scene that we want. Now what we want to do here is I want to make sure that I lock the camera so I can't move it at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is go up and grab a tag, Cinema 4D tag, and protection. What this is going to do is it's going to lock the camera, and now I can't move it, I can't zoom in, I can't zoom out, I can't even change, I can change the focal length. Well, at any rate, I can't move it with any of these sort of files here. So we're going to click that to be locked and leave it in that sort of location. So now the camera is fixed, and the next thing we want to do is to create a background for our scene. So here what I want to do is go up to render settings, go to output, And I'm just gonna make this a little bit, let's see, I'm gonna double this, make it 1200, locking the ratio so I get the same proportion. 1600 by 1200 is a good output. Then I'm gonna save this file. Let's see, I'm gonna save it here, HDRI test. You can see I've done this a few times. Number 5, save that, save it as a TIFF, don't need sound, and we're set to go. So I'll render this out to the picture viewer. And now this is going to become our background for the scene that we can use for dropping frontal projection onto a plane and get something for our shadows to cast on. Alright, so now we have it. So now let's do that. Let's drop in background. Then let's create a new material. And for this material we want specular off. We want the color to be the image, right? The HDR test number 5, the one we just created looking through the camera. And then, no, that's fine. Change this to none and put this on the background. Okay? Now that we have the background, the sky, the camera, we can also add a tag to the sky, which is a compositing tag, so that the sky is not seen by the camera. So we go compositing and seen by camera off, and there we can, let's preview this here. Here we go. So now we have the background that's showing. The sky's still there. It's still going to contribute for the global illumination, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Okay, so now what we want is a plane, some sort of floor to cast our shadows on. I'm going to drop in a plane. And what I like to do here is just kind of rotate it a bit to try to get it to line up with the perspective of the scene. And let's see, I'm going to bring this back. Ooh, make this a little longer, bring this back a little bit, this way a little bit. Rotate it a little bit more. You can see I'm a little off right here, so I'm going to rotate it back a little bit more. That looks pretty good, actually. So there, I'm going to keep that. Kind of move this back in space there. That looks pretty good. Maybe make it a little bit wider just in case. Okay, so there's our plane. Lined up, just eyeballed it to the scene. Drop our material on here. Make sure we have frontal projection. Go up to tags. Go back to compositing tag. Composite with the background. Let's take a look. There. So we don't see the plane anymore, but it's there. We know it's there. So now we can drop some objects into our scene. So I like the torus. It's a pretty good one. So let's orient it maybe this way, and let's see, let's scale it a little bit. There we go. And bring this guy into our scene a little bit more here. That's pretty good. So just get this guy to fit right on there. And maybe also bring in a sphere. These two guys are friends. So let's see. Bring this guy. Whoops. Bring this guy forward a little bit. Bring him up a little bit here. And maybe shrink him down a little bit. Just get it to be kind of oriented and interesting composition. There we go. That's fine. So now let's create a material. So here's our scene. Play it out. We've got the objects. They don't really look like they're part of the scene, so let's work with some materials. So let's go for a new material. I'm just going to create a shiny, chromy kind of an object. Actually, I'm just simply going to choose reflection and like, I don't know, 69%, maybe 72%. That's pretty good. Let's drop this on the sphere and the torus. Now what we see here is that they're reflecting the scene, which is looking pretty good so far, but still not quite 100% there. In order for us to light the scene with our HDRI sky, we want to choose global illumination. The two settings we use in the render settings. First of all, go to Effect, choose global illumination. If you want to speed things up, drop the density down to low, drop the smoothing down to weak, drop the sampling down to low, and this will speed things up a little bit. The other thing I want here is ambient occlusion, which is going to give us some of those ground shadows and things like that. So now when we render this out, what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the color of the scene. Now, we don't have any lights in this, right? It's going to calculate the color of the scene, the light in the scene, and it's going to work to generate the GI based on that. All right, so this is looking a lot better. We have reflected composition. We have a little bit of ground showing with the ambient occlusion, slight kind of shadow cast on the objects, and locating the sun over here and giving us a nice point of view with the objects there. The last thing I'm going to do is I do want a little bit of these long hard shadows in here, and because I can see the hot spot of the sun kind of up in the horizon here, what I'm going to do is just simply drop in a light and just kind of bring it into the composition, kind of back here, over here, bring it up towards the sky a little bit, kind of get this thing to be illuminated in a similar way to the objects in the scene. For the shadow of your light object, I'm going to grab a area shadow, and let's just see what this looks like. All right, it's looking pretty good. Looks like the shadows are somewhat consistent to the objects. They're also reflecting the shadows in the objects, which is a nice added quality to the scene. The lighting is coming from the HDRI plus that sphere that's lighting the scene to give us these nice shadows. Notice the nice fall off with the shadow because of the global illumination, the nice surface on the ground because of ambient occlusion. Last thing I'd do with this is go to render settings and go to the anti-aliasing and change this from geometry to best. And that's going to give a little bit better. It's going to take longer to render, but it's going to give a better image for those reflections. They're going to be a little bit smoother, a little bit softer. You can see that there's less pixelation now. It's a much smoother transition there. So it's looking pretty good. So the things to remember. You can use HDRI from things you find online. You can download free HDRI lighting. You can also use software like 360 Panorama or any of these other photo stitching softwares to create your own panoramic 360 image that you could use. Remember that if you don't have a still, you can shoot a still through the camera and use that as part of your background. Don't forget the compositing tags. Locking the camera into position, I think, is helpful with the protection tag. And finally, thinking about orienting the lighting in the scene. So that's it, HDRI lighting. If you have questions, let me know. I'll post the link, and we'll see some good results.